Welcome back, Relaxed Reps fans. Excited to see you today.
What's going on?
Not much, man. Trying to enjoy the weekend and some sunshine and some unbearable heat.
Yeah, crazy, crazy. It is hot in the summer here in Ohio. It almost feels like Florida. I don't
Hmm.
know how often you travel to Florida in the summer, or not even in the summer. Like this is what Florida feels like if you're in Florida for spring break. You just come back here and then it's just a swamp again. But
Those poor Floridians. We appreciate your listenership still.
yes, all those people from Florida that are listening. Oh, this is new. So shout out to Sasha. I don't know if you worked with him, but he trained. He was an athlete of ours at one of the gyms that we worked at together. He just got into the NHL. He's a first round draft pick, Sasha. So, congrats to him.
Let's
It's kind of
go.
cool. One of us has worked with him before, and had that kind of touch point when he was like 14, which was hilarious. Maybe even younger than that, and he was playing up on like the 16 team and just getting smashed, and he definitely, like, I'm sure he learned a lot from that experience, but he needed to develop significantly. So he's done that, and good for him, man.
Huge congrats to him. It's so cool to see. We've talked about it on episodes prior, but to see where our athletes end up. Having worked with them at a young age, seeing kind of where their training journey takes them. So that's very cool. Huge congrats to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you got a fun icebreaker, I think.
Icebreaker, this is a good one. So this is kind of just like what is something that's really funny or silly that a client or athlete has said to you. I had a client last week come up to me. I said, dude, why are you here so long? He's just been like messing around. Like it's been like 2 hours now. And he's like doing his curls. I'm like, move faster, get your curls going. He's like, Coach, I think I'm just gonna be done. I'm like, well, it's not my fault that you took this long and you've been messing around. He's like, yeah, but I got a game tomorrow. I can't do bicep curls. I said, oh, that's funny. I didn't realize that the bicep curls were gonna inhibit your ability to throw a baseball or swing a baseball. And then he was like trying to explain to me how anatomy works and how he's using his bicep to throw the baseball. And I was like, all right, yeah, I think we need to go back to anatomy class. Maybe I need to lecture you a little bit, but it was quite funny. But yeah, he was like, oh, coach, I can't do my bicep curls because I'm going to pitch tomorrow. I got a good chuckle from that. But
Now you just watch. You're going to put him through a curl pyramid or a curl ladder, and he's going to pitch it, and he's going to feel a strain there, and you're going to get an earful of it.
oh, here we go.
I'm
Yeah,
just
his
saying.
prep 3 sets of 8 or whatever he had.
No, I said a pyramid ladder. You're going to put him, or a pyramid, or a curl pyramid. You're going
Exactly.
to put him through 110 reps, and then he's going to feel a bit sore, and you're going to get an earful.
Yeah, I do it with him, and I make sure he does it. There you go.
Well, then you also got to go and pitch with him the next day.
I would love.
Um, the funniest thing that I can think of in my time, I was a young coach long, long ago, right? Started my career. I had a client that I was on a machine with, um, coaching her through some kind of leg extension, curl, press, something, pretty straightforward. And we had done a machine or two before that, and she just was shaking her head. And I'm like, what's going on? She said, you can't have me sweating. I said, I'm sorry. I did I hear you right? She goes, yeah, you can't have me sweating. I don't want to be, working that hard. I don't want to be drenched in sweat. I don't want to be gross by the end of this workout. Okay. And again, it's early in my coaching career, so okay, okay, sure, sure. Um, but yeah, I mean, hey, I as much as I want to, sit here and say it was the funniest thing, maybe she had to go to a job or something after, or maybe she had something going on. She didn't want to, have to change out. Who knows? But that's not one that we hear often in our field.
No, well, it's very hard now. We don't have air conditioning at the spot, so you just sweat walking inside.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a given now these days. But that is an interesting one. I definitely have had clients complain like, "Oh, now I work so hard, I'm sweating, and then I gotta leave and like take a shower." I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm sorry." Like, I I don't know what to tell you. It's kind of part of the deal a little bit, unless you want to, smell like
Just
shit.
kind of a byproduct of what we do, eh?
Yes. Yes. Change has to happen. That's part of that change.
So the topic we wanted to cover today is we wanted to continue on the continued ed path that we started last week. Last week we talked about internships. I thought it'd be a nice segue if we talked about conferences. The reality is, as coaches, as trainers, we have to continue our ed. We have to stay current in the field. I think that's a good thing. Make sure that people don't just get in the field and 20 or 30 years later rely on what they learned when they first got in it. So conferences, you've been to a good share of them, as have I. I think it's good to go through kind of pros and cons of conferences because every continued ed route has its benefits and drawbacks. So starting off with you, I guess, what do you see as the big benefit of conferences that other modes don't offer, and what do you see as some big drawbacks? Because I got my list, but I want to hear kind of where your head sits with it.
I think the biggest thing with conferences is that you're meeting people face to face. And that's something that's lost, especially, in this field, but in other fields as well. And that's something that we're trying to get going, is trying to start having this podcast in person, right? I would love to be able to do that face to face and then bring guests on and do the same thing and have that ability to have that piece. Because there's something about being with somebody, seeing it in real life, and also, it's like internships too. It's like coaching and seeing the way a system works. Because you can read a ton of books and you can see a lot of videos or podcasts and different things, but to really see how somebody does things and to interact with them in person, I think is invaluable.
Yeah, massive pro, like you said, for conferences is you get to go and network, which for me is definitely an area of improvement. I'm not that good at rubbing elbows. I think you're one of the best at it. I think you shake hands really well, drum up small talk really well, and build bridges like no other. So I tip my hat to you on that. That's an uncomfortable place for me. I would rather just sit there with my notepad and just soak it all in, write down all the stuff, take all the notes, watch all the lectures and be on my way. But that's a drop in the bucket of what conferences offer. To be able to go up to speakers, like a keynote speaker, right after they give the talk, and just go up and shake their hand, introduce yourself, or to the other coaches that are there. We talked about, not attaching to a school, but to the coach themselves. And you'll see some great coaches. You'll see some new coaches that are trying to, carve their path. And so I think that networking opportunity can't be understated enough. It's huge. You'll also be able to hear from, possibly really great speakers that you otherwise might not have access to. Networking is massive there.
Yeah, and I think there's another piece to it too, where because I've done it both. I've done some conferences like in person and out of person, where you get all the benefits of being there, like getting all the content and stuff, and being able to rewatch all the lectures. But there's another piece where if me and you are sitting in a room and we're watching somebody, I can have that conversation with you and be like, what is this guy doing? Would you ever use this in your setting, or how would you use this? Have you done some of these things before? And I can just ask you that conversation, versus I won't have that piece of feedback if I'm just online. I'm still getting a great resource and I'm still learning and having that valuable experience, but it's not going to be the same as being able to understand where other people are coming from and getting their background and how they use things too.
Yeah, so true that kind of having a sounding board there is massively helpful, just to kind of get another perspective on shared information. One thing I think about is when the pandemic hit, it shifted, what used to be a lot of in-person conferences now became streamed conferences, which at the time was like not really done ever that I can think of. But when you have to social distance, when everything is shut down, that was a great way to get your, continued ed credits and to be able to do it from home, which is massively convenient, which takes me kind of to the cons of conferences is they're not cheap. Right?
No.
The cost is significant just to get access to the conference. And if we're talking about going in person, you would have to consider the cost of travel, flying or driving, the cost of a hotel room, the cost of food while you're there. So what might be a $500 conference, which is not out of the realm of possibility in this field. That's pretty normal, pretty standard.
Yeah.
Now you factor in all these other costs. I mean, you might be looking at a grand worth of cost for continued ed.
Yep.
So yeah, the drawback is it can be quite expensive compared to, virtual. But a lot of places, a lot of conferences will offer hands-on sessions, which you don't get the virtual way, and that's massively beneficial. As people in the field know, you have to. There's a difference between seeing something and having it coached to you in real time and trying it out and trying out these methods. I mean, the conference you went to not long ago, correct me if I'm mistaken, but it was massively hands-on. That's how you felt what they wanted you to feel. So it's a bit of a drawback to, have to invest so much, but it's part of kind of like you've talked about before. It's what makes sure you have skin in the game. Only the people that really care about it are there because they've put up the cost for it. They've carved out the time,
Yeah. And it can get frustrating because then you also have to get time off. And sometimes companies or universities won't pay for all of your expenses. And that's the frustrating part. Then I've got to take, 3 days off, maybe more, to go somewhere.
At least. Close to that, almost a week, right? If you're factoring in a day to get there, a day to get back, it's a 3-day conference, you're 5 days out.
Yeah. And what are you going to eat there? Because they don't have, most of the time, those conferences don't have, meals and things. So, you're going...
Maybe lunch provided. But that still leaves you 2 meals at least to factor in.
Yeah. So, yeah, it gets very steep after that. So, unless you got somebody, that's fronting the check, then it's it can get super expensive just to learn from people. So that's why, reaching out sometimes and just trying to talk to people is important as well, because then you can meet new people and just go learn from directly them and see what they're doing without the price of some big NSCA or convention or whatever. You have to spend $500 just to get in when you could just take a drive and go see somebody, and it could be potentially free, or, you're paying for a lunch or something to get you guys together. So I don't know. There's it's interesting. It's all interesting.
Yeah. You're so right that you're taking time out of your work schedule, which is lost revenue to you, right? Because you're not making money. You can't coach when you're on the road to go to these continued ed sessions. So not only are you missing out on what would otherwise be pay, but you have to make sure that you can even get that time off, let alone take the pay hit. It's a delicate balance. And you and I, way back when, I wanted to get some time off to go to a continued ed conference, and it didn't jive well with the employer that I had at the time. And I mean, it really, became a line to toe is, hey, you would think an employer would say, of course you can have this time off. It's important that you continue your education. But from an employer's perspective, a coach being out means that I have to find coverage, or, I can't hold those sessions, and that's lost revenue, and that's a problem. That's a real problem. So, I mean, in a field where it's so transactional, the coach shows up, the clients pay. That's how we all make our living. It's how we keep the lights on. It's a delicate balance to get that time off, to be able to, balance out the cost of it. It's I don't want to say it's a con, but it's definitely something you have to factor in when you want to go to a conference. And how far is it, right? Is it a regional one that's just the next town over, or is it this national level conference that's states away? There's so much to kind of balance out there. Any other pros or cons? I had one more thing I wanted to cover with you, but if you have any more pros and cons, hit me with them.
Yeah, I think another maybe con would just be there's usually an agenda for what they're trying to kind of sell in a conference, right? So if you go, and I don't want to really shit on them, but every conference I've been to, they're always trying to sell products, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to
vendors usually, right?
Yeah, sure. So vendors, and then they're trying to sell their philosophies and try to overstate doing. So sometimes it gets a little bit more of just a
preach-ish
contest. You know what I mean? It's sometimes it's okay, this is cool, but how long are you doing this? Sometimes it's very minute things I do this with my pro athletes, and it's very specific things that you can't really duplicate And sometimes what they talk about are things that you could never actually apply into a setting. And to me, that's a waste of time, because then it's, if we're not able to like use this and apply what you're doing, it's just kind of like, it's cool, but it's not something that I'm ever going to be able to do, or most people are going to be able to do. So that's a little frustrating piece for me, is sometimes I spend all this money, take all this time to go learn these things, and it's like, oh, okay, cool, I could never do this. you know?
Yeah. So that is kind of the third thing I wanted to steer into, which is my pro tips for conferences. I have two main tips that I wish someone had shared with me earlier on. So the second one is exactly what you were talking about, which is when you are planning out what conferences you want to go to, I would highly encourage you to look at who's speaking, because you and I have both fallen into this trap. I need to get my credits. I need my continued ed. Well, this thing is coming up. I'm going to sign up for it and I'm going to go. And you get there and you look at who's presenting, and I'm not trying to drag any name through the mud at all, but it might not be something that's relevant to what you want to learn. It's not something that applies to the population that you work with. Let's say I take a coach that works with youth athletes and drop them into a tactical conference. Their youth athletes are not in combat, so what does all of this military research prepare them for with their youth athletes? And I'm not trying to say that there's not carryover, but what I'm saying is it's important that you look at who's presenting, what are the topics that are going to be covered, not just, well, this is what my organization is putting up, so I'm going to go to it because I need my credits. And then you go to it, and like you said, well, now you're bitter because there's nothing there that you can really apply. So now you took the time out of your day, you requested the time off, and you're not any the wiser for it, because you didn't go to learn from any one speaker or for any pertinent topic. You just went to get credits, and you got them, but at what cost? You know what I'm saying?
No, I definitely understand that, and that's a trap that I think is just part of it. And it's when there's only a couple committees or associations that are in charge of everybody, they basically make the rules, and it comes down to like their money, and it's their thing. So then they get to make the rules on how many credits you need to get recertified, and you only have a certain amount of events every year. So then they kind of force you to like pigeonhole yourself into going to some of these events. And like, it is definitely like that. And some, when they've got this broad audience, a lot of the time it's like, okay, you've got a lot of these different things that are going on at the same time as well. So if you want to see somebody speak, they might have 4 different speakers going on at the same time, and you're missing out on one or two people that you'd really want to see. It's almost like a music festival. Like, I'm thinking,
it is. That's a good comparison.
Yeah, where there's that piece. You're spending all this money to get there, and it's like, oh well, I wanted to see this person, but they're going at the same time, and yeah.
So that actually cycles really well. I promise this wasn't planned to those listening, but that takes me back to my first point of pro tips: do less. And that sounds contrarian to people that are going to a conference. I spent all this money. I'm going to go to all the lectures. You kidding me? I'm going to learn all that. I'm going to go to all the hands-on sessions. I'm going to learn from this one to that one and the other one, and I'm not even going to eat lunch because I care about my continued ed. I'm going to soak it all up. And it's like, good for you. Probably young coach. Good for you. Yeah. But I did that early on in my career, right? So I would go to, whatever this big conference is, I would look at the list of presenters, and I would take that. I mean, it's, to those listening that haven't been, you're talking 3 days of content to consume. And they're 6 to 8-ish hour days, depending on what time you go in, who all you want to see. That's so much to sit through. That's like an undergrad day. Like, you pack the front week of your schedule with classes, and that's just going back to back to back to back. You know what I'm saying? So I would do that early on, and I would say I'm going to take all these notes, and I would have, a notebook full of content that people talked about. And what happens is maybe there's 3 speakers in there that I really, really wanted to see, and I couldn't give them full attention that I wanted to because my brain is so fried from all these other things that I thought would benefit me. So when I say do less, I would say take whatever the conference is and pick 3 to 5, roughly 3 to 5 lectures that you want to attend. Don't do more than that. You may want to. Well, I can fit this one in, I can fit that one in. And if you do 2 lectures before the one that you really want to see, how much attention does that last most important lecture really hold? Not much attention, because you're fried from the first 2. So I would say take 3 to 5, prioritize those, give yourself time to decompress afterwards, because like you and I know when you go to them, you sit through it, you're just buzzing with all this information. Well, I can apply this and I can apply that when it's a really good lecture. So do less, be present, soak into it, think about what you can apply. Let yourself decompress from it, take the notes, and with the remaining time, network. Like Luke said, hey, where do you coach? Who do you work with? How do you think you can apply this? Really do less, and you'll retain so much more.
Yes. It's always a shoulda, woulda, coulda game, especially conferences, because then it's like, oh, well, if I saw this person, maybe I would have been to meet his friends and meet him or whatever. And what's the most important thing for you to do? Like, that's what it comes down to, like for your development and maybe for networking. Sometimes it's more about networking and just trying to meet people and talk to new people. And maybe it's more about like after the conference, grabbing a beer with somebody and just, shooting the shit. So that's why I like to try to go to conferences with people. Like with friends, and then like one or two at least, and then you guys could spark conversation. Then someone else might be able to, reach out and have that conversation with you. Because it's hard if you're not like really out there, like an extrovert, right? And you're reaching out like, hey, what's your name? Like, how are you? And you're wearing the name tag, and you're like, oh, nice to meet you, buddy. Where are you from? You know what I mean? And there's a lot of people at the conferences that are like that. And we'll like travel across the country and do that shit. For me, it's like I kind of like I'll try to make a what's it called? Like I'll try to make an association with somebody. I'm like, oh, cool, you're at Otterbein University. That's great. Like I'm a football coach there now, and I went there for 4 years, and then you can make that connection. Like, oh, you're from Columbus. That's great. I'm from Columbus too. And then there's like some of those things where sometimes they have some of that information, like. At the one conference I went to, we got these cool name tags that had our name and like the logo of the place that you work at, which was wild. I don't even know how they found all that. So they like put the Spots logo right under my name, and then they had like all these high school logos and random stuff. And I was like, oh, that's like kind of a cool idea. But a lot of big conferences don't do shit like that. So it is I don't know. It's what you make of it. Sometimes if you're going to a regional one or like something that's small, like a high school clinic or something, or like something that's held in a gym, for example, so let's say Joe DeFranco, love him. He has like basically his own clinics that he runs. And I went to one of those and I learned a lot, and it was really hands-on, and I learned from like meeting people and met people from like San Francisco that I've reached out to and had connections with and kind of fun stuff like that. So sometimes it just depends on what you need, I guess, for your accreditations and what you are willing to do.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I cling to those two tips of do a little bit less and really know what you're putting your money into. It's like you said, right? You go to some smaller conferences out there. Those are great. Sometimes those are, diamonds in the rough. You wouldn't expect to find them. But sometimes you go to them and there may not be CEUs offered with them. So you spend this time for something that doesn't carry credits, even though you thought, that's what you were buying. So do your homework for sure. I'm not saying skip over the smaller conferences, but be aware of what you sign up for and if it applies to whatever certification you have. Because the last thing you want to do is spend a bunch of money and time stacking up what you think are credits and things you're really excited and passionate about, only to find out that they don't carry over. And I've tried to be diligent about that, but I'm sure there's horror stories out there, people that have, stacked up conferences that don't actually aren't accredited. And that's tough. That's tough.
I mean, that happened to me. Like I went to that Be Activated seminar, and that's not really something that's accredited for like the NSCA, National Strength and Conditioning Association. But I did learn like an outrageous amount about almost like soft tissue work. It was interesting. Like a lot of things that I never would have probably learned if I went to an NSCA sanctioned event, right? That has like their kind of standard of things that they're presenting on. So it was interesting. I still got to work on you, right? And make you cry a little bit. So that should be fun. But
shouldn't take much effort, Luke. Shouldn't take much effort at all.
A little poking around, a little prying, trying to find some tension. It's a good one. I do use it every day almost too, right? So I think it's since that conference, it is one of the things I really have taken from all the conferences I've been to. That one was one of the top tier for me. So yeah, it's interesting.
So we covered pros, covered cons, covered pro tips. Anything else you want to share for those listening about conferences and Continued Ed?
Try to get discounts. I'm trying to think what else. Sometimes the conventions have discounts, or if you work for a certain organization or whatever, they have promo codes or whatever. That's the best way, because you want to make it like money
as
efficient,
cost friendly as possible.
Exactly, because we're all struggling, and that's a whole thing too. And we should have more people talking about that. I would love to have. There's like more conversations should be on like money management, or maybe more. A lot of people probably wouldn't show up to those, but like that would be something for me. I was like, I wish I learned more about kind of the outside, the X's and O's and the exercise science. I wish I learned more about business. I wish I learned more about leadership and like management. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of won't say there's a lot. Sometimes whenever you sign up for bigger conferences, there are sometimes speakers that go off kind of into those niche areas. Not a lot, but again, it depends on the conference. What I find a lot of times is that's more likely to be a topic in the personal training space over the strength and conditioning coach space, typically. But yeah, no, that's definitely something that should get talked about more, I think. I mean, I want to be clear. I'm not saying Continued Ed should be dirt cheap, because I think you get what you pay for.
Exactly.
Assuming one does their homework, there should be a fair cost to Continued Ed. It's what proves you have skin in the game. It's what shows you prioritize your Continued Ed. So, not opposed to it, the cost of it, but definitely, find discounts where you can and get your money's worth, but also be as present as you can. If you're going to every lecture, I mean, that's 20 lectures sometimes that you could be sitting through. How just mind numb are you going to be after all of those,
And sometimes maybe it's not even conferences. Sometimes maybe it's more like certifications or like classes that people have and host. Because some of those people might not even be presenting. So if you want to see these people, you're going to have to take their classes or take their courses or go see them and pay the money to go see them. And hopefully those can get accredited as well. So sometimes that's more even the case. I feel like now I'm trying to do that more than I want to do actual conferences and try to, do those things. So, yeah.
There's no one right answer to Continued Ed, which I think is kind of a good thing. You can take whatever path you want, from internships to conferences to classes and courses. I mean, even quizzes, offer Continued Ed credit. So there's no one right path, no one size fits all solution.
Which would be a little bit simpler.
Be a lot simpler.
I think it's kind of the part of this this art of coaching, this art of strength conditioning, this art of personal training. It's there is no answers. There's only questions, and you just kind of. I feel like that's life in a lot of ways, and that's kind of why I like what I like.
Preach it.
Little jazz snap, little poetry for you, huh?
Yeah.
Well, cool.
We appreciate your listenership. Oh, same time. Jinx. We appreciate your listenership. We hope that this has you thinking about Continued Ed. Please do write in if there's conferences that you like, clinics that you've been to that you recommend. We don't have any sponsors, but we'd be very eager to hear what you're doing to continue your education, what you enjoy, what you have enjoyed to continue your education.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
We'll see you on the next episode, everybody.
Yeah. 3, 2, 1.
Not bad. I rushed it.
See you guys.